are going to create what is called a monoprint. A monoprint means you only get to make one print off of it. The way this one is going to work, you're going to choose an image. You can work on your computer screen actually, or you can find something from a magazine, a catalog, anything you got. Choose an image, and then you actually just take a piece of this clear plexiglass and you're going to lay it on top. Decide where you want it. And we're going to color on it with any kind of washable markers. They need to be washable because they have to be a water-soluble marker. When we're ready to print, we're going to get our paper wet. We're going to lay it on top of the glass, and it's going to soak the ink back onto the paper to create an image. So it'll maybe look something like this one. Notice it's a little streaky, a little blotchy in parts. That's part of the style of this kind of printmaking. So consider carefully as you choose your image. For example, a portrait of somebody does not work great. It almost looks like their skin has been like ripped off their face. It's weird. So pick something like a landscape, a logo, a graphic design, something like that you're turning into what almost looks like watercolor. When you get the paper wet, sometimes we get it too wet and we have something like this happen where we've soaked so much of the ink that it became blotchy and blurry. So keep an eye out for how much water you put on the paper. I'll demonstrate that later. One last thing I want to point out to you, whatever image you choose, so here's the original image I worked from, it's going to come out backwards. So notice how these are opposites. Keep that in mind if you're doing anything like words. Words will print backwards and they won't be legible. So pick something that still works even though the image is going to be reversed. Keep in mind also that anything you draw on here with a washable marker will also smear right off. So that's nice, you can correct your image pretty easily, but you can also rub it off with the side of your hand as you're working along. So I'm gonna start at the top and sort of work my way down so my hand isn't dragging across the glass. Okay, here we go. Got my printing plate right here. I'm at the sink because I'm gonna go ahead and get my printing paper really wet. So this is a nice heavy paper. Notice how long I ran that under the sink for. I'm waiting till I feel like the paper is saturated, almost starts to feel like fabric instead of paper. It cannot be drippy. If there's drip still coming off of it, it's too wet. It will just smear the ink right off the plate. So sometimes I even go like this. I kind of squeegee it a little bit with my fingers. So you still want it to be damp, but you shouldn't see any sort of surface moisture. So let's give it a second, shake it around a little bit. You have two options, depends on which classroom you're in. I don't have a printing press in my classroom here, but at my other classroom I do. The printing press is the better way to go because it will put a lot of pressure onto the printing plate, lifting the ink off better, which I can show you when we're in that classroom. Okay, this is almost ready. So what we're gonna do here is just do it by hand. I'm gonna take this and lay it really carefully. I like to roll, so notice this, I'm going to roll the paper rather than just plopping it. When you plop it, you tend to get an air bubble. So by rolling it, I avoid that. I'm going to set it. I'm gonna roll it on very carefully. And now is when I need to put pressure, but I can't let it smear at all, which is why the printing press is actually better for this project. That moisture from the paper should be absorbing that water-soluble ink back off of the printing plate, transferring your image, a reverse image, onto your paper. If you are doing this by hand, notice I'm not rubbing. I'm just pressing. If you rub wet paper, what's going to happen? It's going to start to ball up and it's going to tear. Okay, here's the part where it can be heartbreaking or it can come out great, and sometimes you just have to start over. So coming up closer to you, I'm going to angle the camera down so you can see me pull it off. Fingers crossed. And there you go. There is my final print.